every British person living in this country has cause to worry. The email said, would you like full occupancy for a year on a rolling contract? As soon as the contract's over, we'll do a complete refurbishment. As a hotel owner, you don't get letters like that very often. Camelot Castle, the idea of putting up migrants in 4-poster beds. They intended for me to lay off the majority of our staff. The thing about the British, we are an 11th hour nation and we tend to rally at about 11:45. Unfortunately, with a lot of these politicians, you're dealing with a level of absolute stupidity that is off the charts. It takes willingness to talk to people that you hate.
I can never see Rupert Lowe forgiving Zia Yusuf for getting him nicked.
Sometimes people go so blind over money that they don't consider the consequence of taking the king's shilling. You take the king's shilling, you fight the king's war. Well, just decide what war it is you want to fight. He doesn't like gays, if that's the correct word for them.
Homosexuals, I think they prefer these days.
Is that the official term?
If you're running for Prime Minister of the UK, steer clear from rent boys. I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, Gold Seal. I use their products every single day, and now I finally get to work with them. I use their products for anti-inflammatory, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and mental clarity. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description, along with a 10% discount code for you to take advantage of. Go and have a look at their website, see if there's anything in there for you. I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and good health. John.
How do you do, Liam?
Very well. And this couldn't be timed any better if we tried. So I watched you on my good friend, Andrew Gold's channel. I know that you was offered, in his words, an indecent proposal to house migrants in your wonderful hotel, Camelot Castle in Cornwall, which I believe is a listed building, and you declined. Now, this will be a very different interview to the one you've done with Andrew, in case anyone's watched your one already and think, oh, it's going to be a copy and paste. It won't be, because when I watched it, I thought, A, what an interesting guy, what a man of morals. Let's delve deeper into what happened and also a bit more about other stuff that you do. But first of all, just tell me a bit about the backstory and the deal that you turned down that so many others haven't.
Well, it started off with an email, and my manager came to me. And to be honest with you, I really thought it was a joke, because the email said, would you like full occupancy for a year on a rolling contract? And, you know, frankly, as a hotel owner, and I think a lot of hotel owners have been through a little bit of a hard time recently, you don't get letters like that very often. And so I thought someone was basically pulling my leg. So I called them personally. Normally I wouldn't, I'd just leave it to the bookings team. But I thought on this occasion I'll call them personally. And sure enough, it was a company that was representing the government at the time, which oddly was a Conservative government. And they wanted to take over Camelot for what I assume would be legal and illegal migrants, and basically to use it as a processing centre for them and to put them up. And frankly, the phone call was shocking. And because I was quite curious about it, I took the time to really ask the person I was speaking to about it. What was most shocking was that they intended for me to lay off the majority of our staff. Many of my staff have been with me for 20 years. To put things in perspective, Tintagel is a little tiny coastal town that sort of sits on the cliff edge in Cornwall. It probably has a population of around 1,500 people. So to bring what would probably have been between 200, 300, possibly 400, we don't know. But even if, let's say, you bring an extra 100 people into a village of 1,500, that is going to change the demographic. It's going to change the culture. But the shocking thing is that they intended for me to lay off the staff and just keep 3 and do Meals on Wheels. They'd have sort of brought the food in from some other company. They said, well, you clean the place once a week. And this was shocking. And the second thing was, because it is a listed building, I raised a concern. I said, well, what happens if the place gets trashed? And, this is a historic, it's Camelot Castle. It sits at the birthplace of King Arthur. It's got all the original fireplaces in it. And, it's really quite a beautiful late Victorian building. And they said, "Oh, don't worry. As soon as the contract's over, we'll do a complete refurbishment." And I said, "Well, at whose expense?" He said, "At the subcontractor's expense."
AKA the taxpayer's expense.
AKA I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I wouldn't particularly want my money as a taxpayer being spent on, redoing the hotel or redoing somebody else's hotel." And so, yes, I found that to be completely an abhorrent idea. But really, it's what it would have done. My immediate thought was the consequence of what it would do to the local life in the community. As the main employer of the village, obviously there's the economic aspect as far as that's concerned. Where would those 30-odd people go and get jobs? But the other aspect is our customers are coming into the village every week and they're spending money in the village. So you've got cafes there, you've got people that sell crystals and plastic swords and all sorts of Arthurian memorabilia and stuff like that. And I don't know how much money our customers spend in the village every year, but it's certainly in the hundreds of thousands. And that can make all the difference if you have a small business. And I've always been interested in small businesses, and I know that the difference between a small business making it and not making it can actually be some years a few £1,000s. And so you could easily see those businesses start to suffer, and then the shops in the high street close up, and then the charity shops go in, and we've seen this all over Britain. And actually, Tintagel is now, it is a thriving town. It is doing quite well economically. We wouldn't want to jeopardize that.
No, I think a lot of people overlook the damage it causes to local economy as well and small businesses. I mean, our immediate fear is the danger it brings because there's no paperwork. We don't know where they've come from or what crimes they've done, or actually what they're fleeing from. Are they fleeing from crimes they committed themselves? Because I don't think they're fleeing war. So people think, okay, well, we're in danger, women and children. We now know that Epping, that have been housing migrants, legal and illegal, there's now been a guilty verdict of a sexual assault against a 14-year-old girl. And I don't think sexual predators are exclusive to Epping. That could have quite easily happened in your hotel, and then that would have had a ripple effect in the community on top of the economic crash it would have caused. I think people that are all for these migrants being housed in hotels, they need to think of the wider ramifications. It's dangerous on all levels, not to mention very un-British. Can I ask you, when you had this conversation with the government agency, did they come at you with a pitch?
Yes. I mean, they had been instructed to find hotels. And I don't think there were that many potential targets for them. The truth of the matter is they were acting under orders. But to go back to your point, how would you feel if you did a business deal that resulted in somebody, let's say, in the beautiful village of Forest Row, which I love as a town or village or however it's described. How would you feel if you did a business deal here that resulted in a young girl being harmed or a family experiencing something that made them feel unsafe? I think the truth of the matter is, I've been very humbled by the response to this story, very humbled, and it has gotten a lot of attention, and I did decide to speak out about it. But the truth of the matter is, you wouldn't have taken that deal, Liam. And I don't believe that 95% of the people in this country would have taken that deal, because most people do have a conscience. And I think that's what your show is actually achieving beautifully, is that you're showing that actually people in this country do love their country, they do have a conscience, and they would do exactly what I did. Now, the offer did come to me, and I did decide to draw attention to it. And I think in drawing attention to it, it has created a contrast between what's going on in Epping. And in fact, I wrote a small article the other day for my Substack, A Tale of Two Villages, Epping and Tintagel. And the consequence of, there was a businessman there that did decide to ignore his own conscience and, took the shilling. And look at what has happened in Epping. Sometimes life happens so fast, and sometimes people go so blind over money that they don't consider the consequence of taking the king's shilling. As my father used to say, you take the king's shilling, you fight the king's war. Well, just decide what war it is you want to fight before you take the shilling.
So focused on money that they don't realise how poor it will leave them.
Well, this is true. And of course,
without a community, you haven't really got a great deal anymore.
Well, you don't. And people also forget. You see, there's the immediate threat of, well, you've got people that have come into the country. Them arriving here illegal is a criminal activity. They are breaking the law. So you could argue that someone that's broken the law once is more likely to break the law again. And so you have the immediate threat of, does that make the town itself less safe? And I think, as you say, this has been proven that, in fact, indeed, such arrivals can make towns less safe. But that, I don't think, is the biggest threat. I think the biggest threat is the destruction of the local economy. What does it do to, we're all connected. Life is a symbiosis. And it is, other than the fact that, of course, it creates huge division. I mean, can you imagine now if we had taken those migrants, what would be happening in Tintagel now? I'm sure by now there would be demonstrations. I'm sure by now.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think the idea of putting up migrants in four-post beds.
It's not the way.
No.
Not the future.
No.
And irreversible damage has been caused in Epping. When a 14-year-old girl gets sexually assaulted, that doesn't go away in a week, or even when they get evicted. She has to carry that burden of that trauma for the rest of her life. And who would want to be responsible for assisting that?
No. And that is the point. And this is why the chain of responsibility for rapes such as that don't, to my mind, simply rest with the rapist. They rest with the people that made it possible for that rape to occur. And I think it is extremely important that we start to hold our administrators and those who are governing us to account for decisions that have such ghastly consequences.
We don't want unvetted men. Well, I don't, and clear as day, you don't either. I can guarantee through being to 4 different migrant protests that it would just be terrible in Cornwall. I know the people in Cornwall, and you've invited me to come and meet some of the locals.
Come and meet them. Come and meet some of the locals. We have some of the finest Cornish people in Tintagel, and they are super, and they have their own views. Some of them like me, some of them don't. So you'll have a broad range of discussion. And the truth of the matter is that I think what's unified us as a village is the idea that that decision not to take the government shilling was absolutely right for the community. And I must say I'm very, very pleased that we did that. To your point about what's going on at these protests, a very wise friend of mine once said to me, he said, the thing about the British is we are an 11th hour nation, and we tend to rally at about 11:45.
True story.
Yeah. And the problem is with that, delayed, we watch. We're extremely patient. We do not really like to go on marches. We do not really like to protest. It's not really our cup of tea. We'd far rather just sort of get on with life and enjoy it.
Hope that somebody else deals with it.
That's really what... So the fact that now people are coming together, it is actually really quite a dangerous situation. And the problem is people are getting emotional about it. And the reason I decided to act and to go public about it and to communicate about it was because I believe that if you don't take action now, the division that would be caused later could be far worse than any of us would wish to imagine. And human beings, when their backs are up against the wall, they can do things that, later on they regret. But in the moment, these things do happen. And I implore even our existing government, which seems to be totally and utterly incapable, but I implore them to actually act with a total sense of urgency, because I think things are getting to the point where every British person living in this country has cause to worry.
100%. And you've nailed it. And it's exactly my stream of thought as well. Like, prevention is the cure.
Prevention is the cure.
So when people are now protesting outside migrant hotels, there may not necessarily have been any crimes committed yet. The economy may not be damaged yet. But rest assured, give it time, it will. And you don't want to be in a situation like Epping are, when children have been sexually assaulted. You will not be able to live with yourself if you've got a conscience. So, yeah, from me to you, thank you. And I hope lots more people follow suit. And I hope people join their communities to protest, but don't let emotion get the better of you. I was guilty of that. Do it peacefully, do it professionally, do it properly, really, in volume, a good, strong, solid voice, and they will have to take notice. Well, Keir Starmer, he actually said he's now going to move migrants into empty military bases. Did you read
there's
that?
no question. There is no question.
I wonder if he will do that, though, rather than put them in hostels and HMOs. Is this another bit of gaslighting, bit of bullshit on Starmer's behalf?
He has to speak for himself, but every day one is staggered by the level of incompetence of the current government. But clearly the message is getting through. And minimally from the point of view of sort of self-survival and realising that, their own position in Parliament is under threat. Sadly, and I spent time, and for a while I had an office in Parliament, and unfortunately, with a lot of these politicians, the lights are on, but nobody's home, and you're dealing with a level of absolute stupidity that is off the charts, and it's almost as if they're the last people to realise what the actual people of Britain are thinking.
Are they just doing what the civil servants are telling them what to do?
I think a lot of people get into politics with the best of intentions on both sides, and or on all different sides. And what happens is I think the system itself, number one, they try to do something and they run into this sort of amorphous blob of sort of nothing, but it's just sort of might be called Mr. Stop. And so anything they try to do, they tend to get stymied on. And then they sort of find themselves circulating various drinks parties, and then, of course, they end up probably having some dubious affair with somebody else's wife or something. And, they end up in a muddle. And this weakens them. And so by the time they advance or get to any level of, where they could do something about it, they're so compromised and weakened. In the worst of cases, of course, there's all sorts of blackmail that somebody's collected up about them, and these people can be, highly controlled and manipulated, and those people that actually are running the country have them more or less as sort of marionettes, really.
There's a good cautionary tale in there. If you're running for Prime Minister of the UK, steer clear from rent boys.
Well, they do say that, don't they? It's probably
highly recommended, sir.
It's probably very sound advice.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked you as to who you think's pulling the strings, because I know that you've got close relationships with very powerful politicians. I know that you've got a personal relationship with Nigel Farage. I wonder how Starmer. I think Starmer would fear Nigel Farage. Maybe you have got a better idea than me because you know him personally.
Well, Nigel's a really good friend. I mean, he loves Tintagel, actually, and comes to Camelot to stay, which I hope you will as well.
Maybe you can arrange for me and Nigel to be there at the same time.
Well, you never know.
I would love that.
Why not? Actually, I think your audience would appreciate the opportunity to get to know him in a way, because coming here, for those of you that haven't been to the Tough Studio, this is the most idyllic part of Sussex. The atmosphere and the energy here is superb, and it's very conducive to a positive conversation. So, why not?
We want to conserve that.
Yeah, we do.
And rightly so.
We do. And funnily enough, you drive through the lanes coming here and you think, actually, this is what we need to preserve about England. This area around here, I mean, this is one of the most beautiful parts of England. So I'm sure Nigel would appreciate coming
Well,
in.
see, I think I communicate to the working class very well.
Yes.
I mean, I'm from a council estate. I've worked the door for years. I'm ex-odd carrier. I tick all the working class boxes. I have to try my very best not to swear every 5 minutes.
Right.
But also I can hold my own with most. And I'm interested in the world and for the betterment of the country and people's welfare. And I think a lot of the working class, because of a few flippant comments, have lost a little bit of trust in Nigel. And I think it would be great for Nigel to have a chat with someone like me, where I've got a bridge straight into the hearts and minds of the working class, and I can ask him questions people on the sofa that watch me would ask him that would want to know. Because it doesn't have to be highbrow, off the scale, political. Just some layman's terms questions.
I think they would. I mean, Nigel and I are mainly social friends. I don't advise him with regard to what he does politically in any way. But you get to know somebody and you see, are they for real? Or are they just, being who they're? And the thing is about Nigel, he really is a real guy, and he's doing it for the right reasons. And people can say, well, you would say that because he's your mate, but I wouldn't say that because somebody's my mate. The truth of the matter is he does care deeply, and he is a very, very deep well when it comes to the life of this country. Funnily enough, he's somewhat of an expert on military history. And I think you'd find that quite interesting.
There's a lot of qualities that Nigel's got that I'm fascinated with and I admire. There's just a few things, I think every politician should be held to account.
Of course.
Because if they're there to serve the people, and I say this because I don't want any division on the right, but I'm definitely a strong believer of, even if you support somebody and you're voting for somebody, if there's something you're not quite sure about, hold them to account. Ask them, why did you do that? Why did you say that? How can you correct that? Are you really here for me or for you? Because I would say Nigel is a populist, would you say?
He understands populism very well, and he has certainly ridden the wave of populism. But there are certain aspects to him that are quite traditional as well. And I think you would find a conversation with him absolutely fascinating. And I agree with you completely. My whole thing with I'm friends with most of the people on the right. I'm friends with Rupert, I'm friends with Ben, I'm friends with, Nigel. The Trump family are close. My motto is, united we stand, divided we fall. And my wish and my prayer is that somehow all of these characters can find a way of working together. But it's probably a big wish at this stage.
But we
have to try.
We've got to try, and there's still time. We've still got 3 years.
Plenty of time, and people change in 3 years, and things happen. Macmillan's great quote, events, dear boy, events. Things will happen in the next 4 years. Things that probably you and I wouldn't even begin to be able to predict in terms of world events. The most outrageous things can happen in a heartbeat and you don't realize it. And secondly, the news is fake. So, I think
that's why these chats are great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, the more I learn, the less I realise I knew.
Yeah.
and
100%.
And every day is a school day for me. You mentioned Trump. What are your thoughts on the emergence of Trump?
I was sort of quite involved with that, actually, because my wife had just given birth to our son in May, actually, late May 2015. And I was on baby duty, which didn't come naturally to me, nappies and stuff like that, although I did get stuck in the end. But I was on baby duty on the night, and I was watching YouTube on the night that then Donald Trump came down the escalator at the Trump Tower. And I use a particular way of predicting consequences. And I knew he was going to win. So I contacted my bookie at William Hill, and I put on 36 bets at 33-1 on Trump basically winning the nomination and the presidency. And I knew he was going to win, but I also knew that Hillary, who was the obvious other alternative, would have been a total disaster for planet Earth because she would have taken us to war then with Russia. So I did a sort of rather amusing thing. I hired the ex-editor of the News of the World, who is sort of poacher turned gamekeeper now. And I said, we're going to be in trouble here because I've put this bet on, and I bet you William Hill are going to leak the story of this bet. And sure enough.
They did.
They did. And before you knew it, there was a headline. Of course, I think I've mentioned to you before that I'm a Scientologist. But there was a headline in the New York Post, and it read, Donald Trump's biggest fan is a Scientologist that lives in a castle. And my God, this thing went absolutely viral. His lawyer started following me on Twitter almost sort of immediately. And I ended up with 650,000 Twitter followers on sort of Trump fans. I thought, well, this is rather interesting and rather fun. And then I started really paying attention to the whole thing. And so I was very involved in the campaign. And we had one very amusing incident where Trump had raised a huge amount of money for veterans right at the point that he was really coming under attack for some various different things. I said, actually, to go out and do good when you're really under attack is such a sign of a big being. You know, most people, when we come under attack, we just sort of shrivel up into our shell. We don't like go back over the ramparts and start doing great things for other people. But that was Trump's response to the attack. And he raised, I forget the amount of money, but it was in multi-millions for the American veterans. So I said to my wife, I know what we'll do. We're going to give Donald Trump a knighthood. She said, can you do that? I said, well, of course I can. She said, well, and the Queen can give knighthoods. I said, no. The Pope gives knighthoods. There's various other different noble orders. The Queen's got her noble order. We will have our noble order, and we will make him a knight of Camelot Castle. I said, come on. It's all imagination in the first place. I'm a king. You're a queen. It's all make-believe, really. It's just agreement. And I said, we will create the noble order of Camelot Castle and we will issue him a knighthood. Anyway, so we put out a press release on Reuters that we've knighted Donald Trump in a hereditary knighthood. And, of course, that would get passed down to Tiffany et al. And the other children and so on and so forth. And I made the point that the knighthoods that get granted in England now are not hereditary. They're only lifetime peerages. But I said ours is hereditary. And, of course, the BBC calls up. And they saw the press release. They said, we see you've knighted Donald Trump. What have you done? You can't do that. I said, I'm sorry, I've already done it.
It's now Sir Donald Trump to you.
Yeah, I said, I've already done it. We said, well, they said, well, you can't. I said, well, it's done. I'm sorry. I've sent Excalibur to Trump Tower by FedEx. It's a done deal. Anyway, so this, of course, in America, you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
They absolutely found this to be just great, just like a spirit of play. Of course, over here, the BBC didn't get the joke.
Like something out The Simpsons.
Yeah. It was just, they just thought it was great, and the family loved it. And, various different things. I went to the opening of he opened a hotel in the middle of the Trump Hotel in Washington. Was opened in the middle of the election campaign. He said, I'm going to open this hotel under budget, ahead of schedule, in the middle of the election campaign. And I said, well, I've got to see this because I'm doing a restoration of a hotel and I'm behind schedule and over budget. So I want to see how he does that. So we went over to opening night and it was marvelous because it was a soft opening. And, I met the whole team out there. So then I sort of got involved in helping, but I never did it in a professional sense. In other words, I just did it because I felt it was the right thing to do. And I was able to counter various different situations, where somebody told a blatant lie about him, like he's a misogynist or he doesn't like black people or he doesn't like gays, if that's the correct word for them.
Homosexuals, I think they prefer these days.
Is that the official term? I don't know.
We don't
mind. We like them all.
This platform, we use any term we like.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because I don't have a point on that. But anyway, he was being accused, and I said, well, hang on a second. Most of the staff at the hotel as far as I could see, were gay and black, some of them. So, I mean...
Well, before Trump become president of the States, he was in every black rap video I can remember.
He's always been embraced. And actually, he's one of the least racist people. When he bought Mar-a-Lago, the East Coast money was furious with him because they were not allowing Jewish people into Mar-a-Lago. He changed that, So any idea that he, they tried to smear him in every possible way. And what has always fascinated me as perhaps a researcher is how black propaganda and how weaponized propaganda can be used to take down individuals, groups, or even countries. And propaganda, or as we've come to know, sort of psyops or military-grade psyops, has been a political, really, weapon of mass destruction, I would say. And it's evolved as a subject. And I think the attack on President Trump was something that I understood because I've studied black propaganda and how black propaganda is used to destroy groups or to give people a sort of a leery sense about something. And so I was able to use what I had learned to counter the lies about Trump. And actually it was very appreciated. And a couple of days after he won, I had a call from Eric Trump, actually. And he said, "John, thank you so much. We saw everything that you did, of course."
Well, because you've been out there yourself, you'll know this as well as I do. So I've got a friend that lives in Texas. He used to live just around the corner from me. He's since moved to the States, been a resident there for decades now. He's got a black wife, a black child, and he's the first to say that Trump isn't a racist. He said the press over there will do their damnedest best to make Trump look a fool.
Yeah.
He said they constantly try and smear him and make him look ridiculous. And it obviously filters back through the BBC, and that's why people over here have got a negative opinion of him. Although I think most people think he's got skin like a rhino and he's a strong leader, and we could do with some of that.
I think it's improving here now. But certainly when I took a positive position towards him, I'm certainly very glad I hired the ex-editor of the News of the World to handle my incoming.
Good job.
I would say that Trump is the most intelligent political leader that we've had in America for certainly, the last 100 years. His intelligence is off the charts. And what the media he did it to them so many times that I'm amazed they never worked it out. But he would say something, and they would attack him for saying this thing. And then he would double down, and they would attack him for saying that. And then he would triple down. And what should have been, from the media's point of view, they really wanted to kill him. They should have ignored it. They ended up giving him, I think we worked it out, an extra $2 billion worth of name recognition publicity by him understanding how to take. He was like a sort of a jiu-jitsu master where you throw them with their own energy. I've never seen anybody play the media in that way. And he did this. He's used this technique in geopolitics. He's used it certainly during his campaigning. The intelligence is off the charts. And I think people in England are starting to see
through the nonsense.
Yeah, they're starting to see through it.
People on the left would love to lambast him and accuse him of being thick. You don't become the president of the United States by being thick. No. I mean, that's thick to think that.
Try making money in New York real estate being thick. I mean, try surviving in New York real estate. Try surviving in big business in America.
Try grabbing people by the pussy being thick.
Well, I think it's arguable as to whether he ever did that. But I mean, yes, it was an interesting choice of words. But, he has most certainly changed the political landscape forever. Politics will never be the same in America. I don't think politics will ever be the same here. I mean, funnily enough, I was up at the Reform rally or conference yesterday. And
How did that go? Because Lucy Connolly was speaking, weren't she? And
she did a great job.
I wanted to talk because we laugh about free speech, but we laugh about freedom of thought and thought crime. I think what Lucy Connolly done was a thought crime because there was the caveat of "for all I care." So, with linking in the reform event you went to, Lucy Connolly speaking there, being jailed for her thoughts, and Trump being an advocate for free speech, and our free speech being under attack. Let's try and tie all that in. How did the event go? What are your thoughts on Lucy Connolly, and what's the consequence of free speech being removed from our society?
Well, to be honest with you, I'd never been to a political actual rally before because I'm not really a sort of a rally attender. I tend to sort of do things quietly myself. So I couldn't really compare it to any other political rally or conference. But what I would say was that the energy there was superb, the positive optimism, the people there. It was about as grassroots of a public as you could possibly get in England. And a lot of people that were there are not the people that would usually get involved, I would say, in politics. It was a fresh and very vibrant crowd. Lucy was amazing. And, she started a debate. She highlighted a debate. The other person who was amazing there was actually Dr. Asim Malhotra. And he pointed out and, again, highlighted some of the harms that vaccines may have done. And it was very, very interesting to see a mainstream, effectively, because one can't describe Reform as anything other now than a mainstream political party because based on the polling, they're going to have a majority in the next election. To see a mainstream political party acknowledging what most of us have all known for, actually years now, is that those mRNA vaccines potentially are lethal and have harmed a number of people. I think that it was a very, very superlative conference, and I think Nigel has done something, again, that is completely and utterly historic. But there's no question of the Trump influence. There's no question that, politics over here is now crossing over into, aspects of the entertainment business, aspects of the celebrity world. It was quite interesting to see that, Jacob Rees-Mogg turned up there. Lord Ashcroft was there. And clearly these are cornerstones of the Conservative Party. But they couldn't resist being at the Reform Convention just simply because they wanted to be around what it was. And, who knows? Maybe they'll join the ranks. We don't know. But it was just very, very interesting to see what is happening. And I think that Lucy, I think the whole country really on the whole felt that, surely, yes, she did tweet something that was completely and utterly inappropriate at the time. But again, this goes back to our point. When people's emotions get riled, they will do things. And frankly, I think a tweet that technically breaks the law is the least of our worries when it comes to, what people are capable of when things happen. So I was pleased yesterday to see it. I was very, very pleased I went because very often you see stuff on social media. You don't actually, meet the various different characters. And I had an opportunity to meet, I'd never actually met Zia Youssef before. And I was interested to meet him, and I was interested to see, there's no question in my mind, he is sincere in his way. And I know that, a number of people have had difficulties in digesting him and so on and so forth. But I got to see the the goodness in him, and I got to see how he is interacting with reform. And you see a lot when you actually go to a place and you break bread with people and you talk to them. Life is a different experience to seeing something in the press or online or reading a soundbite.
It's very different to X. Zia Yusuf has actually blocked me on Twitter, but what's now known as X. I don't think he's a big fan. But I want to hold people to account. And I was very dubious as to anyone that can get a colleague arrested and potentially want them sent to jail for some crosswords in the Parliament hallway. I think, what's all that about? How can we?
I know.
Listen, how can we trust a man like that? I mean, if Rupert couldn't trust him and they were colleagues, how the hell can we trust him?
Well, this is a very, very. It's an interesting discussion to have because I was with Rupert for dinner the night that Elon Musk tweeted out
saying Nigel wasn't fit for the job.
Right? Do you remember that?
Yes.
I don't think that division is necessary, and I believe that the goodness of all of these people, whether it is Zia, Ben, Rupert, I genuinely believe that all of them in their own way want to do something about the horror show that we are all witnessing in our country right now.
There's a lot of ego on the right in there.
I'm afraid there is.
That's a shame.
I'm afraid there is. And that's one of the reasons we bought Camelot Castle. And I'm not a natural hotelier. I just went for a walk one day and I saw it up on the headland and I said, my God.
That's mine.
Yeah. It was literally a 45-minute decision. I walked in the front door. There was a little old man there. And I said, do you know the owners? And he said, I might do. I said, they live around here? He said, they might do. I said, you haven't thought about selling this place, have you? I said, you're the owner, aren't you? He said, as a matter of fact, I am, dear. I was thinking about it this afternoon. Anyway, we had a drink in the bar. And anyway, the reason was because I always knew that Camelot Castle is an icon. The table, the round table that we have in our Great Hall is round for a reason. And I don't believe that there is a problem on earth with anybody that cannot be solved by communication.
It's key.
Now, it takes skill. It takes willingness to talk to people that you hate. It takes willingness to listen to ideas that you completely and utterly disagree with. But that's the only solution. And you have to find something in the other fellow to admire. And so my role, I am not particularly involved with any political party. I see individuals, and if I like somebody, well, then I will see what I can do to help that person on the basis of friendship. And so I don't really, I've been hounded for the last 2 months. Lots of people saying to me, you must run to be an MP or something like this.
Well, you've got a very nice, calm aura. So I can see that you would be a good mediator and a voice of reason. I mean, I can never see Rupert Lowe forgiving Zia Yusuf for getting him nicked. I think that's probably...
I think that could be a tough one. But never say never.
I admire your optimism.
Never say never.
I wouldn't forgive him.
No. And it's very easy to be this sort of... expecting everybody else to forgive each other,
There's a line, isn't there?
There is a line.
There is a line.
But I happen to know just how patriotic Rupert is. And for him, it's an eternal purpose. It's not something that I think is a last 5-minute thing for him. I think he's been patriotic for a very, very, very long time indeed. And I have this belief that people that are truly patriotic, in the quiet, dark night of the soul, they find a way to put their patriotism and their duty above their personal discomfort. And, I spoke to Rupert virtually daily when this was going on. And it was awful when these various different things happened. And I didn't like it at all. But I always understood that it is an anomaly of the political system, that people find themselves in situations like that. And I would hope that there was a way that, for the good of the country, that there can be some type of workable unity that doesn't destroy what everybody's trying to do.
Some kind of line in the sand.
There's got to be. There's got to be. And I say that, in relation to all the various different patriotic groups there.
Yeah, I don't need to like you to work with you, because that's the goal.
Being effective together. There is a way. My certainty, and it's a certainty I live with, is that any disagreement or any conflict can be ended. What I always do is I look for the hidden third party that stirred it up in the first instance. And I use something called the third party law. And it's a very, very interesting observation of life. It's something I learned some time ago. If ever you have a conflict where originally two people were getting on and then they stopped getting on, very often you find that there is a hidden third party that has been in the ear of one person or in the ear of the other person or simultaneously in the ear of both, that profits in some way, either financially or in some way that they perceive they're profiting for those two people not to be in communication. And if it is impossible to restore the affinity between those two people that originally were getting on, then there is always a third party at work. And so what I do in helping to resolve conflicts is I get people to look for the hidden third party. And it is one of the most powerful tools. It can resolve a relationship that's not going well. It can resolve disputes between companies. And you do notice that there are people that profiteer. It's the cause of war, actually. I mean, most of the wars that we're witnessing at the moment have been created by individuals or groups that are profiteering, let's say, from a perceived advantage that they see in the conflict, whether that's through weaponry sales or you saw it we see it a lot with pharma. The classic one, of course, is chemical imbalance in the brain, which is the biggest load of rubbish ever. But more drugs have been sold to more unsuspecting people by convincing them that there is such a thing as a chemical imbalance in the brain. It can't be measured, never has been measured. There's no proof for it. It was an advertising slogan come up with in Madison Avenue. And more people have been stuck on antidepressants because they've been told that they've got a chemical imbalance in the brain. Well, this is the actions of a very, very active third party, because the harm that does in the world. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people do come and see us at Camelot. They know that, number one, I'm not judgmental in any way. I've sort of heard it all. There's nothing you could say to me about your life that would surprise me because I've just, as probably you've been around the block, one has been around the block too. We've heard it all.
Well, you wouldn't even be surprised if one day Rupert Lowe and Zia Yusuf are sharing a brandy and Rupert says, "Remember that time you got me arrested, you swine?"
Yeah. I've seen far worse situations resolved, let's put it that way. Far, far worse situations resolved. One of the funniest things about my Trump story, I will tell you this, perhaps I've not mentioned it before, but do you remember there was that time when Trump was supposed to be meeting Kim Jong-un and he was sort of calling him Rocket Man and anyway, he cancelled the first meeting by tweet. I get a call from a North Koreans. I'd never met a North Korean. And they said, well, can we come and see you at Camelot Castle? Because you're the only person that understands Trump because we saw you put a bet on him.
What they say, we just can't work him out.
We can't work him out.
No.
I said, well, come down. So this little, North Korean fellow came down with his other friend from South Korea. And they said, we just want you to explain this to us. And they filmed me.
How would you explain Trump? A lovable narcissist?
He appreciates himself.
That's one way of putting it. But we need a leader that appreciates himself.
I appreciate myself. I'm sure you appreciate yourself. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of self-love.
No.
So anyway, they came down to Camelot and we had this sort of filmed interview, and I said, I just tried to explain. I said, listen, if Trump says he wants a cup of tea, that's what he wants. He wants a cup of tea. He doesn't want a cup of coffee. He doesn't want a cup of tea slightly altered from what the tea he expects. He just is a simple fellow. And he has the ability to frame extremely complicated issues in total simplicity. And the Korean fellow goes, I get you. I can't do the Korean accent, but he says, I totally get you. We have the same in the hills in North Korea. Our wise men are very simple and there are few words. And I said, yes, that's the type of wisdom that you're dealing with. It is a deep spiritual wisdom. And one of the things I did, funnily enough, is during the 2015 campaign, I wanted to find out and really perceive spiritually who Trump was. And I found out that his mother, who was very close to him, he was much closer to his mother than his father, was born in the village of Tong, just outside Stornoway. I don't know if you know where that is. No. It's in the Outer Hebrides.
Oh, really?
It's in the Outer Hebrides. And so I decided to fly up to the village of Tong and visit the croft that she was born on. She was born on a Hebridean croft. Because I thought if you understand where somebody's mother comes from, you can really gain an understanding of who that person is. So I flew the whole family up there. I mean, we got this little rickety old airplane into Stornoway, and we went and we took a look at this croft. And we just sort of were there.
Did you know at the time what you were doing was slightly mental?
Well, I would say it was in-depth research. It was thorough.
Did you know at the time that it was thorough?
Yes, I did feel I was being thorough. But funnily enough, it turns out that his mother was deeply religious, and she was part of what is called the Hebridean Revival, which was a revival of Christianity. And I discovered when I was there that there was a priest that started the Hebridean Revival who had an altar boy called Donald. And he gave that altar boy a Bible, and that altar boy gave that Bible to Trump's mother. And that was the Bible that he was sworn in on when he became president of the United States.
Wow.
And it is the most extraordinary spiritual journey of, it's a great Christian story. It's a great story of faith. And when I met President Trump shortly after he was inaugurated, the impression I got is I was dealing with a deeply, deeply spiritual soul. And this is where people miscompute with him. And his wife is ethereal to a whole other level. I mean, you get into her space and you just know that you are in the presence of something very, very connected to the divine. She is an ethereal being. And it is a very, very interesting thing. And people don't think with that. And when people go to see him, they don't think with that. And it was interesting when he came to visit Her late Majesty, I corresponded with her. And I explained this aspect of his character to Her Majesty, and she was extremely appreciative.
She responded to you?
Yeah.
So you've actually had correspondence with the Queen?
Yes. Well, I wanted them to get on well, because there were all attempts by the media to say, well, Trump is not going to get on with Her Majesty. There's going to be a problem, and so on and so forth. And so I worked quite hard, and before he met Her Majesty, he knew all the pet names of her corgis.
And it is them little touches that count.
Well, I think it is.
The observation,
taking the time to
be interested.
Yeah, and she knew that she was dealing with a deeply Christian soul in him and in Melania. And as, you know, head of the Church of England, and as somebody who is deeply Christian herself, I thought that was extremely important for her to understand. And I'm sure that, well, I know it was appreciated. and it's a very, very valuable thing to be able to help to orient somebody as to who the other fellow is. Because what is the message of media? What is if you had to break down into a simplicity, how is it that the media divides us? Well, the essential essence of it is that other fellow over there, he's bad. He's dangerous. It's trying to convince us constantly that the other fellow is a threat. Whereas the truth of the matter is, the other fellow, generally, when you get into communication with them, is probably all right. Now, there are definitely exceptions that disprove the rule. But on the whole, other people are, frankly, they love their children just as much as we do, And so I think to counter that and to point out how the media acts actually as a constant third party on our lives.
Very toxic.
Is extremely toxic.
It's not good for your state of mind.
No.
And if you didn't have a chemical imbalance before, you will have now.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Do you know what? And I've lost count how many people that have sat opposite me now. It's been a hell of a journey. That Trump story is one of the most fascinating stories that I've been told since I started this podcast. And I thought, when you took off with the story, I thought, this guy's a madman. But look what happened as a result of your thoroughness. But what I want to do is, I want to wrap this up on that note. Well, there's actually one more thing that's important, so don't go anywhere, people watching and listening. There was a lot of things I didn't cover with you, but I think it would spoil a great conversation, and I think we can cover it in a part 2 in 6 months down the line, because it's not something that needs to be discussed now. Very interesting, and it will give the audience something to look forward to, and you and me, and we can grab some lunch. But that was fascinating, and I've also very much enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
And more times gone by than you probably realise. But you brought me something. It's not often I'm brought a gift. You brought me a gift, and I said, well, can you save that for the interview? Because give it the context and tell me the reason why you bought it.
I've seen now a number of your podcasts. And the thing that strikes me about you, Liam, is that you are bringing unity to this country. And for several years now at Camelot Castle, we have been designing a sculpture in order to express the essence of Camelot, which essentially is friendship and unity and getting people together in order to facilitate, positive communication. And a few days ago, I received back from the refinery, the smelter, this brass sculpture of what we call friendship into eternity. And I'm just going to show it to you here.
I can hold that up to the camera if you like.
If you hold that up.
This is now mine.
This is yours. This is a gift.
And I'm extremely grateful for that. And the sentiment behind that is very, very special. So there's two friends there in the middle here. So explain that more in
Well,
depth.
you can see there's two friends sort of arm in arm, and one of them is sort of pointing to the future. And you'll notice that they're in a circle. The circle represents friendship, but you'll notice that the circle itself is not perfect. It's an elliptical circle. And the reason for that is that no friendship is perfect, no individual is perfect, no group is perfect. But the real skill in friendship, and, when you park yourself at Camelot Castle and you live the sort of life that one lives, and I'm sure most people could make this observation, we can all go out there and buy this knick-knack or other knick-knacks, and some people like yachts, some people like supercars, some people like airplanes, all sorts of things they sort of feel that is going to satiate themselves. But one of the things that had interested me is what is real wealth? Because we talk about rich people and we talk about poor people, but what is real wealth? To me, if you have one friend that you can count on one hand, you're a wealthy person. If you've got 5, you're in the super rich.
Yeah.
And so many people in this world can't even say they're friends to themselves. They're actually doing themselves a disservice daily. And so the importance of friendship and the strengthening of the bonds of friendship is the essence of what we are trying to do. And as this came out of the foundry last week, I thought, what a more appropriate gift to give it to you, Liam, because what you are doing is you are creating friendship by what you do. You're creating unity. And I would like that to be a reminder to you when you look at it of the basic idea: united we stand, divided we fall.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that might blow your mind. And I want the audience to believe me as well. I'm not just saying this, and I will show you on my phone off camera. That made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, your words. So this will be getting aired before the 13th of September, when the kingdom will unite in our capital. And this morning, I've gone to my notes because I'm going to speak on stage. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to give a big political speech, and I want to make it short and punchy like I would a viral clip on Instagram. And I titled it, and this is as far as I've got: Unite the Kingdom, September the 13th, be a better friend.
Wow.
I promise you on my mother's life, and I will show you it on my phone. In
But
fact,
now the hairs on the back of my neck are going, because I'm
tempted to grab the phone just to prove a point. Do you think you could grab my phone, Si? Because
wow.
I could easily say that to you and it not be true. And this wasn't scripted. No. I didn't know you was going to bring this. I didn't know the significance of it. And this morning, here we go. My phone's going to be passed to me now, just to prove a point. I'm going to go to my notes. Notes. UTK. What does that say, John?
Be a better friend.
That's the first line of my speech that I'm going to say on stage, to be a better friend.
You see...
Now that is insane.
Well, you see, people talk about power the whole time, don't they? And most people have a gross misunderstanding of what power is. Some people think it's the ability to exert force. So a warlord would consider that, if you can smite another man's army. But, of course, force is a very temporal thing when you're dealing with immortal beings, which, of course, in our own way, we all are. And friendship, you see, if you really look at what is the true definition of power, the fundamental of power is friendship. How many friends do you have? And the fundamental of friendship is help. So a friend is somebody who you help and who helps you.
And to me, it's one of the most important things in life. I'm massive on friendship. Huge.
Yeah.
So that's unbelievable. When you tie it in with that this morning, and I've proved it, that's what a way to end the podcast.
Wow. I mean, the hairs on the back of my neck were going as well, Liam. This has been, I don't know where the time has gone. This has almost been like a timeless conversation, because I'm sure we've been rattling along.
And there's plenty more where that came from as well.
Yeah.
So on that note, I'm going to thank you implicitly. I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thank you so much.
I'm grateful of my gift, and the way that's all linked in, that will stay with me forever. So,
well, by all means, share that symbol, share that message. It's your own anyway. You were there already.
That's mine,
and that's yours. And it's a great pleasure. It's called Friendship into Eternity. And if we can all just do a little bit every day to help our friends, I think the world will be in a better place.
To friendship, John. Good elf, sir. Thank you, mate. All the best.
Thank you.